Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today I have the broker owners of one of the most respectful brokerages in Northeast Florida. Their vision when creating the brokerage was to be a full-service real estate firm focused on primarily on military relocation. They not only have work with buyers and sellers, but I have a portfolio of rental properties they manage. These two ladies have over 30 years experience in the greater Jacksonville area. Let's welcome these two amazing women who own Hovergirl Properties, Lara Yehl and Joy Doyle, to the show.
Here we are.
Thank you, ladies. I'm really, when I was researching your website and so forth. Now your LinkedIn's are a little brief, and everybody knows I go to the LinkedIn for kind of get some background information. So there is some gaps in there we will fill in briefly to give everyone kind of your story. But I guess Lara, if you want to kick off a little bit, as I always do, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Hollywood, Florida. Pembroke Pines, really kind of adjacent to Hollywood, but most people haven't heard of Hollywood. But grew up down South Florida and lived my life down there until, you kind of get married and start living the Navy life. But I grew up in SoFlo. SoFlo.
Excellent. So now, again, the LinkedIn was a little brief. As a young person, you're 18, 19, 20 years old, what did you envision yourself doing? Because somewhere along the line you meet your spouse,
right?
And because both of you are military spouses, and please,
former.
I'm
former.
Joy's, I'm former. We can get to that later, Tracy.
We'll talk. But so how what are you thinking about as a young person? What dreams you have, aspirations of a career, or what you wanted to do? Right.
At that time, graduating high school, I was actually living with my mother in Homestead, Florida, and she was like, you have to get a job with medical benefits. And so I went to work for Piedmont Airlines at Miami Airport, and I loved that job. That was, my hire date was 11/6/86. And I loved it. I worked for them until 9/11 happened, so I had about 15 years seniority with them. But as a young person at that time, my goal was to just do what my mother said, get a job with benefits, and I did.
Right.
And I loved it, and they moved me to Orlando for a promotion to a supervisory role at the airport in Orlando, and then that's where I met my now former husband, and then you kind of start living this Navy life, and then we went to Pensacola.
You're the second Navy, Elaine from Coldwell Banker.
That's Elaine Morgan.
Yes, Elaine Morgan.
She used to work for us.
She sure did.
She met her, she was working in Orlando as well. And that was my question is, how does the most landlocked city in all of Florida, where do these Navy wives come up?
Funny that you say that. My parents thought he was lying because they were like, there's no Navy in Orlando. What are you even talking about? So should have been an indicator, but it wasn't.
Should have been an indicator. Well, there is not
about a red flag
down there, but and spring break.
Yes. Anyway, so that was my, South Florida. Worked for the airlines. It was a great training for customer service and how to treat people. And Piedmont really was known for their Southern hospitality, customer service, which is really, hopefully, who I try to be anyway, just who you are. Mm-hmm. And it was a great fit. And then, unfortunately, 9/11 happened, and then we moved overseas, came back, and, before you know it, Tracy, 10, 15, 20 years goes by.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Especially if you got a kid involved in there.
Correct. A couple of kids in the mix.
And it's like yesterday. It's like, hold on, you were just born yesterday.
I know. You're like, what happened?
Yes.
But it's all good.
Okay. Joy, where are you from?
So I have a interesting story. I was born in Mobile, Alabama, which is how I met Glenn, my husband, who spent 26 years in the Navy, actually 30. But my dad had a contract that went out to Evanston, Wyoming, and if you remember before Google, there were things called the Atlas map.
Yes.
And so the Atlas map.
You ever wonder how we actually drove around anywhere without?
They say we were like pirates.
So my dad got this contract approved by Chevron to find oil out of the mountains of Evanston, and so he did like any smart person. He went to the gas station, bought the $12 Atlas map. We came home and drove out there, and we got to Evanston, Wyoming, and there really was no school system that my mom found acceptable. So we turned the next page, and there was a little town called Park City, Utah, and that is where I spent my youth.
Okay. So as a young person, what were your
aspirations?
Yeah.
I wanted to be a lawyer. Had no intentions of getting married at 19.
Unreal.
Yeah, and so
Think about your 19-year-old kid getting married, y'all.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and my friend had applied the year before. I was the student of the year for one of those organizations that, anyway, long story short, she got to go to Portugal. And I thought, well, golly, if Amy Irvine can go to Portugal, so can I. So I applied, and my paperwork came back, and I went to Malaysia.
This cracks me up, Tracy. I knew her for like such a long time. One day she drops me. She lived in Malaysia. I'm like, you did what?
So you're 18 at this time?
No, I'm 16.
You're 16 at this time. Oh,
Yeah.
so this was a high
This
school
is
type
during
thing.
high school.
Oh,
I'm trying to think of what that organization is. I'll think about it in a minute.
Just like a foreign exchange type thing?
Yeah, it was a foreign exchange student
Yeah.
at AFS, American Field Service. Yes.
Wow,
So
Doyle.
you
she's
actually
going
went over
back.
and spent significant, it wasn't like a week or two. You actually went over and spent some time.
6 months. I'd lived with the Department of Agriculture, the president of the Department of Agriculture, who went to college and got his PhD at the University of Hawaii, and his wife spoke English, but they would never speak English to me because they wanted me to learn their native language tongue, which is Bahasa.
Bahasa. Okay.
Whoa.
In 6 months.
In about 6 days. So that is a true story. And while I was in Malaysia, my parents got a divorce.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
so imagine, no internet.
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
You're
no,
just making a phone call once a week type thing?
Well, you got to have a phone to make a phone call. So you got a letter. And so when I left Malaysia, I never went back to Park City. I flew back to Mobile, where my mom was living with family because my dad left my family.
Wow. And that letter took a good week to get there, I would imagine.
It took a little bit of time, but I believe God is in control of everything. So
Yes.
here I am. I go back to Mobile, Alabama. I think, what are we doing? I need 1 credit to graduate from high school. I could do it by working. So I worked for a lawyer in Mobile. And then I had a good friend, and her name was Wendy Boxall from Park City, who had never seen really an ocean. And so for her spring break from the University of Utah, off she comes to Mobile. And we go to the Floribama. Have you ever heard of the Floribama?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, I have.
Yes. And so I showed her what the mullet toss was.
That's right, girl.
Mullet toss.
Class it up, Doyle. Class it up.
And then this guy comes in a flight suit and puts on I'll show you later, the poster where he staples it to the wall. And our third friend says, he is hot. And we've got to go to that party. And Wendy and I were...
Oh, sorry. He's wearing a flight suit, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So he's in
I'm
flight school.
putting this together now.
Yeah.
I'm
But not
visualizing
dip-
this.
yeah,
all day.
Not
dipping and
Glenn.
drinking.
Their roommate, Tom.
Okay.
Don't know what happened to Tom. We should probably try to find him.
You okay, Tom?
Yeah, Tom, you all right?
Tom?
Remember the red door on Fort Pickens Road?
Oh, my God.
Okay, so...
All right. So you see this guy hanging this poster. You like, he's hot.
Yeah, well, I don't really think he's hot, but Megan does, and so they invite us. Tom invites us to the party. We say we don't want to go, but we'll go for Megan, and we meet Ron and Wendy. Ron Boxall retired recently as a 3-star admiral,
Oh, nice.
and Glenn retired as an 06, and we both married the men that we met that day in 1985.
It's incredible, Tracy.
Yeah.
It's very good.
You can't make that up.
It's very
Well,
good.
I have been like really, because I love Maverick, and I'm sitting here. I was watching some of the YouTube clips this morning as I was getting everything ready, and just as her talking about this, I'm visualizing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to go watch it with Glenn. He'll tell you all the things they didn't do correctly.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Like the I-bar is not on the beach in Coronado. It's on the base.
Yeah, it's on the base.
Anyway.
Well, it doesn't make it as romantic.
No.
So you're 19. You go and get married. So are you now moving around? I mean, what happened?
Yeah,
What do you start doing? Your whole lawyer idea
gone.
gone.
Which is okay. Again, okay. I'm in love. I'm young and in love. Glenn likes to see. Did you see The Officer and a Gentleman where the guy goes into the factory and yells,
Yeah.
Go Paula.
Yeah.
Everybody, Glenn always calls me Paula because he thinks he saved me from Alabama, which is honestly probably a little bit of truth.
There's a little bit of truth behind that.
So he gets his orders. We marry March 8th. He gets his orders March 20-ish, and we head to San Diego for him to go and train to be a helicopter pilot in the H-60 Bravo, which at the time was a new aircraft, which is now retired. Flame can tell you about that later.
Okay.
Yeah, he knows.
He knows. And so we did that for a year, came back to Jacksonville. We moved 14 times just to land the plane. And so we moved 14 times. Glenn geo-batched extra times, so he moved 17 times in our career. All over the world.
And to give everyone a context too, I think obviously a lot of people who are in Jacksonville somewhat understand what it's like to be a military spouse. But I mean, in that period of time, you know, the deployments, you know, especially out to sea and so forth, like when you go back and think about the time where they were active and you were married, how many years were you actually together versus the time they were away?
Well, that explains the 30-year marriage.
That's right. We've been married 37 years 2 weeks ago, and that's why. No.
So you have to deploy him every so often?
Yeah, you got anywhere for him to go. No, in all seriousness, though, you know, it's a different Navy than it is today. It was only letter writing. We would put a number on the outside of the envelope because when your mail would drop, you might get 15 letters at one time, but you didn't want to read that out of line.
Yeah.
So that is very old school. I've kept all those letters. My girls, once we are deceased, can have them because they're going to get a kick out of them. But yeah.
So you haven't disclosed it to them yet? They're not just a couple teasers,
couple of hangers,
just a couple teasers, so they don't throw the shoebox away.
She might have to redact a couple things.
It has been, yeah.
I'll help you.
Yeah, we'll have a redacting party.
Yeah.
So no, yeah, that's how we lived our life, and so I think a lot of that, to be honest with you, being married so young. Not that I am encouraging deployments for this reason, but I spent a lot of time alone, so you kind of grow up in the way of people who go off to college and things like that. I kind of had a little bit of a sorority, if you will, like Lara, of girlfriends doing the same thing. And, you know, we didn't have the phones, the text, the talking that the military
where you can get online, you can actually see them.
No, that was not happening. No.
None of that was going down at all.
All right. So do you pick up any other work? Because it's a little bit of time before you actually get into real estate.
Oh, 100%.
So what are some of the things that you guys do?
Oh, I joke about this all the time. We went to Japan for a couple of years and lived in Sasebo. And so I was always a working person. I worked since I was 14. Always, you know, we joke about making a little money on the side as a Navy spouse. And so when we were in Japan, I taught English at a little Japanese school. And so I used to joke that I would make yen on the side, which I did. And then they have there the 100 yen store, like the dollar store.
Is that right?
Absolutely. I'd schlep my kids to the 100 yen store and we'd, you know, spend our yen on the stuff there. And it was, so I did that. And then, again, I worked for the airlines for such a long time and then did that. When we came back from Japan, Joy and I were reunited.
And it feels so good.
Speak a little bit, Laura, because you mentioned your kids were with you in Japan.
They were, yeah.
So like, what ages are we?
My youngest one, who's 20 now, he turned 1 on the plane moving to Japan. We crossed the date line, and the boy turned 1 and then promptly threw up on me. and then the older boy was 4. So my kids are 3 years apart. So I was there with a 1 and a 4-year-old.
What are what are some of the stresses, some of the challenges of having kids overseas?
It was something, and like Joy just alluded to, I felt back, I just mentioned this to an Air Force spouse that I met a couple days ago at Madame Bernadette. She's her husband retired Air Force. When you do things like that, it's very empowering. And I remember coming back thinking, if I can move to Japan with 2 little kids and thrive and come back, and I mean, I'm like, I can do anything. It was really
awesome.
to be young. I wasn't 19 like Joy was, but it was very empowering. Like I got my kids there. I got them acclimated. There wasn't base housing. We had to live out in the Cho. We lived in Ono Cho in Sasebo and had to get the Japanese car and live in a Japanese house, like legit with the shoji doors, whatever it's called. My kids would put their finger through the paper, and I'm like, security deposit, kerosene heaters with a 1-year-old, all of that, right? So it was very challenging.
You can do that, you can do anything.
Well, and of course, like Joy said, you get there and your man's gone. We got there and the ship left, and so you just got to figure shit out. Oh, you got to figure stuff out.
No, you could say that.
Okay. Well, people are doing that all day around the world, and that's what we did.
Did you take them to any other countries, or Japan was primarily?
We basically stayed all around Japan. MWR had awesome trips that we would take with other family members because really, I didn't want to go alone with my kids, but it was great. We saw a lot of Japan. My former husband saw a lot of that part of the world, but we really kind of stayed in Japan. Lots of beautiful things to do, and really we made the most of our time.
Well, did you go to Singapore?
We did go to Singapore to meet the ship with the Dowdells and the Espiritus, and again, these are people like, as you know, Tracy, you form these bonds. We are connected for life,
right?
With people that you do that kind of stuff with.
Right.
For sure,
it was great.
Now, how about you, Laura? Did you have your children with you?
Yes, I'm Joy.
Yeah, Joy.
I'm sorry, Laura. Joy.
No, I'd love to say that because
I know I was going to make that mistake somewhere on that.
No. People always call me Joy and her Lara.
All the time.
Where did you go with your
family?
Outside the country? Yeah.
I did not leave the country with the kids, but we burned up I-10 going back and forth to California. We lived in, I'll give you the quick version. So got married in Pensacola, went to San Diego, came to Jacksonville, went to Philadelphia. Glenn was in Admiral's A, went out to Monterey. He got his master's degree, went to Long Beach during the Rodney King riots.
Oh, jeez.
Which was a hard thing to be left in the midst I was pregnant with my third at the time, and that was just a hard time for that part of the world, and my heart broke. And then we got to San Diego. He deployed for 9 months off the coast of Somalia. If you watch the movie Black Hawk Down, he was the mini boss who would send the helicopters from the ship sitting off the coast of Somalia. That was his job there. And then came back. We came back to Jacksonville, up to Memphis, back to Jacksonville. I said, no more moving. We now have kids that are entering middle school, and he was fortunate to have 2 jobs here. And then in addition to that, he went to Norfolk in the height of the war of Iraq. Yes, you get them confused. Iraq. And then he went to the Washington, D.C., to the Navy Budget Office. He was the assistant to all the Navy budget, came back here as the Commodore, and finished his
So how many
tour.
times your kids move and have to change schools?
Believe it or not, crazily, we did so much moving the first decade that once we got here and got settled in the latter part of their life, they went to Providence here in Jacksonville, and they were able, because we sacrificed, really Glenn a lot, sacrificed keeping them stable, and we always said we were never going to have the regrets. But he was in the military at a time of a lot of uncertainty. Iraq was happening, Osama bin Laden, just crazy stuff.
Right.
Things were going on. Anybody that knows anything about trying to navigate the Navy budget knows you'd rather go to Iraq than the Pentagon.
All right. So when does the sense of real estate? Because you guys already know each other at this time.
I was going to say,
when do you guys actually?
Yeah, Joy and I met. Molly was not a baby, but she was little. Yeah, 3, and that was the time they had come back to Jacksonville. We ended up in the same squadron together. I went to a officer spouses meeting type of deal. That's where I met Joy, and the girls were planning a party at the time. They used to have this thing called the flight suit formal, where you could alter the flight suits. You'd have a theme for your squadron, and
no longer done.
Yeah, no, it doesn't happen anymore. It really is a different world. Y'all know that.
Well, actually, I'm surprised about that, but go ahead.
We should have a museum. We should make a museum. Anyway,
I still have my thing, and I think today, knock on wood, I can fit into it. So anyway, we had this thing. We were the Flying Elvises. And so Joy and I were like, oh, I raised my hand. We had to go find go-go boots and Priscilla Presley wigs and things like that. And so Joy and I went to 5 Points, and just immediately we were kindred spirits.
Put Molly in the back seat.
Yep. Molly used to laugh. Ha. It's such a cute little laugh. Anyway, we took Molly, and she was my baby. And honestly, I have loved her kids as she has loved mine. And that's just how this is going. That's just military life.
So we met. Glenn could not get leave, so I had to go find a house in Memphis.
Yep.
I call this the beginning of Hover Girls, and I said,
it was.
I said, I got to go to Memphis to buy a house, and Lara said, I'll go with you. And so the two of us, husbands couldn't get leave. We went to Memphis and found a home and bought it. And
I have to tell the story about Rhonda Lane.
You cannot.
Okay, never mind.
You may not.
Okay.
Or maybe she could tell it. We could decide whether we want to edit it out.
No.
It's cute.
It's to the grave. Anyway, some things are to the grave, Tracy. So that was the beginning of Hover Girls. Now we all came back. She came back from Japan.
right.
I came back from Memphis, and the market, it was 2007, 8. So imagine.
Yeah. Wow. That's when you're thinking about getting into real estate.
That's when Hover Girls was born.
That's right. Well, yeah, 15 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, why? Everybody wants to know why. So I'm going to tell you why. Because the military, so what had happened was the market had crashed. Now they've bought homes that are $100,000 worth less than
Now
when
they're
they
getting
bought
transferred.
them. Now they're
Correct.
getting transferred. The military hasn't caught up with this, so if they don't rent that house out and keep that mortgage current, they lose their security clearance.
And their benefit as well, but yes,
All
the
of
security
that.
clearance is dollars. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's how you keep your job
Yep.
in the military. So from that, we thought, wow, we'll start a property management company and help these people out too, and really kind of felt like we were serving, and that was.
It's very similar, like way Bobby Brennan, the way she describes how she got started.
Well, she
down
works
south.
with
Just
us.
yeah,
That's
just
why. Same thing.
helping out.
Yeah.
The situation that she was dealing with down in Miami, especially
she had some
with the
crazy
younger
stuff.
person.
The mildew. Yeah, she sure did. Yeah.
She did. She's lovely.
And realizing those people needed her guidance, and she wasn't even an agent yet.
She was not. That's right.
She was just being someone who's being helpful from that standpoint. So
yeah.
you're diving in, obviously. When a lot of people obviously are falling out of the business, you're rolling into it. You have a niche. Tell us how that developed. Your focus on helping those military families.
It really was word of mouth. I mean, Joy and I sat down and kind of went through the people that we had known through the military life and our Christmas card list, and reached out to those people, and really they knew us, knew our credibility, our ethics, our reputation. And a couple of key people believed in us and hired us to help them manage their property. And, once that kind of happens, word really spread organically, word of mouth. We didn't do any advertising other than telling people.
Right.
And we thought we'd manage 20 properties. We'd each kind of be responsible for 10 each was our initial goal. Joy, remember?
I do, because I had one child going to the University of Florida, and I didn't know how to pay for her sorority.
Yeah, Joy was worried about the sorority bill. That's right. And I
wanted $600 a month.
She did, because Sarah, and we had to have a dress and all that stuff for the functions. And at that point, I wanted my kids to then be able to go to Providence. And so we were motivated by trying to, provide good things for our kids. Not that we couldn't on one salary, but really, again, making that extra money on the side was always a nice thing to be able to supplement the family income.
Right.
100%. 100%. And we wanted to help, but we realized in real estate you need a broker. So I had worked for Bestcon homes that failed because of the market.
Maybe the name was bad, but whatever.
Terrible name. But anyway, long story short, the accountant I knew was a broker. So we went in and said, can you help out a sister? And he said, sure.
He did.
And for the next, up until last year, we had him as our third person in the triad of Hover Girl Properties. And then he got very busy with his own life, and we're busy, so we very amicably parted ways. And Glenn, you got to make your husband pay you back a little bit after all I did for him. So I said, guess who's going to be the broker?
Okay. So he's a figurehead.
He is.
We let him play golf. He can do anything he wants to do as long as
We are very clear, though. I'm like, Glenn, you are not the boss of me. Ever.
Ever. He tries once in a while. We're like,
You can wear stripes every so often, right?
yes.
No.
He thinks.
Give us a perspective of the greater Jacksonville area as far as, especially obviously the Navy's is concerned. And how many, all these people that you were helping, how many homes are we talking about? How many renters are we talking about? I mean, in broad terms.
Hundreds,
We've now done, I will tell you right now, our portfolio is in the mid 300s. We got up to about 400, and then I called it the Great Sell-Off, which were really military people around the world who never wanted to be a landlord, and the market got great, and they could sell.
Right.
The market now is trending back up for real rentals, and we're doing very well with that. A lot of people don't know that we do both. Last year, we did $108 million in sales, which is a lot, because we're not out on Ponte Vedra Boulevard. We're really servicing our military for the most part. I mean, we sell to anyone.
How it's, a lot of people debate that. I see a lot of top brokerages who don't really have, they don't really want to get into the property management, because I think obviously you have to have the skill or someone who has the.
You have to have support
I can tell
for
you
that.
why. I can tell you why. It's hard.
Yeah.
It is hard. But from the business perspective side of things, it really has been great because the market will ebb and flow. In real estate, you can really only do two things: you're renting or you're buying.
Right.
Unless there's another option we haven't.
Live with mom's basement.
Correct. Which, that's a whole
Some
other
of our
show.
people are doing.
So it's poised us to be okay when the market ebbs and flows.
And I'm a loyalist too. Like we started Hover Girls for that reason. And so we would, I don't think either of us would give it up really for the reason of that's how we started, and people supported us and, loved on us. And now, people see us on social media, and that's great. We do support NHA, which is the Naval Helicopter Association. We have to do that because they supported us from day one.
Day one, yeah.
We support Sailor of the Quarter philanthropically because we believe that those are the people out really the leadership of the Navy. We do that expecting nothing in return. We just believe in the.
Well, to go back to the business of doing you really started with the property management, led into sales, but I imagine knowing some agents that do find rentals for people, are willing to do that, because I think a lot of agents today
they kind of turn their nose.
Yeah, like, oh, you want to rent? No, call me when you want to buy. The problem is they are giving them off to another agent.
Correct.
Who is smart, is continuing to follow up with them.
That's right, Tracy.
And what we always tell agents that give us a renter, we say we will do our very best to get them back to you, and we do, because we feel like that's the right thing to do. However, if the rental agent has stayed in touch and now has a 1-year relationship with a tenant, sometimes they just are, dig their heels in and say, absolutely not. I'm going to only you. And we can't do really anything about that. You can't make somebody.
No.
And I'm not, but we try.
Right.
We also give 10% referrals to anybody who has a real estate license that refers someone that we place. They get 10% of the first month's rent back as a thank you.
Well, looking back over 15 years now, starting with that base, and now there's probably a whole circle now that's just flowing for you, from the renters to buyers who now will rent, because rent is getting there, and they can afford to have both homes type of things. And I'm sure you guys educate them on, you might want to hold on to this one right now, because you're going to get this quality rent, and that sort of thing, but through education. But I mean, just simply having that flow, I mean, how has that changed your trajectory versus if you just started, with the exception of the collapse of 2007 and 8, because if you just start off, hey, I just want to sell, like a lot of brokerages are, and not do the rental. I mean, how has that changed your trajectory? The fact that you do it all.
Well, we have an amazing staff. I would say from a business perspective, there's a lot of security in it because we do both. And I love to have somebody call me like this morning who says, I've been transferred. I'm going out west. I've heard about you in the wardroom over in Naples or somewhere over there. And I hear you're the only person that will rent my house out. And of course, I'm thinking, I don't do rentals anymore. No, that's not true. I said, you know what? We will do our best. It might not be me, but we will take care of you. But I think by doing both, we get to see the ebb and flow of truly what's going on in the market. So when I feel like someone is only doing sales, they're obviously going to trend towards trying to talk somebody into selling their home. And we start our spiel, if you will, with if you want to rent, great. If you want to sale, great. And I will tell you this, if somebody rents with us for a decade, financially, we would probably have made more money on that transaction than if we sold the house.
Just one house at the beginning. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that. And so we don't really have, there's no motive in talking them into going one way or the other. It's really what's best for their family.
Yeah, just education.
Yep.
And then make the best decision you can with what you know at the time.
Yeah.
And it really, when you're at the time where, things are slow, or I'm sure as the fall went on, things weren't as hot and heavy as they were, the previous 18 months. And you're like, hey, I need some homes to buy and sell. Well, you have this whole, Rolodex of landlords to call on and just say, hey, how you doing?
Right.
Do you want to sell?
Yeah, we do. And I will tell you, of course, you saw it too. Everybody in the world went and got their real estate license in the last 3 years with no training. And so, now I think a lot of them, supposedly everything I've read, that number's going to get split in half, even potentially up to 75% because...
Oh, wow. Yeah, I heard at least 40% they figured weren't even going to renew.
Exactly. Yeah. And, like anything, you can find an article to support anything. But the bottom line is that number's going to, people still have bills to pay.
Right.
So
right. Unless you've done something or have some way to create a stream of income for yourself, it's not really sustainable if you're sell a house every other year.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to work with someone who's in the market, knows what's going on, relevant, into what is the heartbeat of what's happening in Northeast Florida.
Yeah.
That's who I want to work with.
There's no doubt. In every show we're going to talk about, and hopefully some of our customers, our friends and family, realize it's not always best just to hire the girl down the street,
right,
who just got her license. Oh, it's good if she's supported by a great broker,
correct, and
they're in a program. But you need to find that out, especially right now, as you guys know, there's houses that are selling over the weekend with multiple offers.
Yes,
while others are sitting.
Just had one.
Yeah.
This weekend.
Priced right.
It was priced right. It was military. They were shocked that I got above asking price. Happy as a clam, and
it's so great.
And I'm so happy for them because they're going out west, and they really needed that to happen. So the people that are just hiring their friend because they went and got their real estate license, while that's really nice, this is all I ever say.
Right.
This is a business transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Go to dinner. Just kind of like, who you vote for president. I don't need a friend. I need a president.
Yeah.
So
that'll be our political statement for the day.
Yeah,
there's your political statement. But I mean, it's true. It's just like 100%, a teacher. It's, I'm not.
You hired a gun for what you need to use it for.
Correct.
Right. That's why I'm a big believer in, and I say this all the time when someone's interviewing us, because that's what millennials especially like to do is print out 10 questions. I already know what they're going to ask, which is fine. But I always say one of the questions you're missing is, how long have you been a realtor and who trained you?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't ask those two questions, you're
or ongoing training, really. I
right.
mean, you could have been trained 10 years ago.
Right.
That's a totally different.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. But if you have had no training and you've hung your license under somebody you're going to pay $250 or $500 and you get no training, this might not be a great wise decision.
All right. So you guys get going 15 years ago. How long is it just the two of you guys? Well, actually, technically 3, I guess you were mentioning.
Well, he was quiet, but it was Joy and me. Really, Beach Boulevard. all day, every day. And then we finally brought on an agent. Erlene Pascal was the first girl that came on, and she's still with us, and we love her.
All right. So the question I want to lead to here is a lot of people, some of the very top brokers that we all know here in town is really, when you're looking to grow, is getting that support. So did you brought another agent on before you start bringing on some assistants and transaction coordinators?
We did.
Tell me how that developed.
In the beginning, it was another agent. Joy knew Erlene, I think, through the builder world, right, Joy?
She called me because she lived in Atlantic Beach. Very sweet. And she said, I'm starting to see these Girl property signs in your name. I helped her design and build her home in Atlantic Beach. And she said, I just want you to know, woman to woman, she was a Navy wife, a new divorcee. And she's like, girl power, I'm so proud of you. And I said, do you want a job?
Because I think at that time, she was working for a builder, and it was tanking.
And she was making no money.
Right.
Yeah.
She was panicking, and she was, she needed, like everybody, a job. So we took her on, and then...
as an agent.
As an agent. I got to tell the story real quick about her crying. Joy had a buyer with her, so part of the training was Joy had a buyer in the car with her, and I was with Erlene in my car following, and we're shadowing along for the day, and I'm explaining to Erlene what we're doing, why we're doing it. I get back in the car, and I look over in the passenger seat, and she's crying, and I'm like, oh my God, why is she crying? Genuinely, she looked at me, and she said, I can't believe that you and Joy would, A, share any customer leads with me at all, share your money, your resources, your
knowledge.
Absolutely, because you know this, but this business can be very territorial and hard, and she just couldn't believe it. But honestly, that has been the crux of what we've been doing from the beginning. There's room at the table for everybody, especially someone like Erlene, especially like another Navy wife that really kind of gets our vibe. But to answer your question, yes, she was the first agent we brought on, and then eventually support staff came. Once we got to where we exceeded that 20 property mark, Joy and I couldn't answer the phone call about the pool filter, right? So we hired a service person to field those calls, and then from there, that has now grown. We have a full-time service person that fields all the calls on the rental properties.
Right. And I have to give a shout out to Leslie, who is Lara's sister, who at night, she would work all day at a law firm in Orlando.
She did.
And she would come home at night and run background checks and put with the lawyer these leases together.
She did.
So that was really, she kind of stood up the administrative side of things.
She did, and then one day Joy's like, she got to move here.
I go, she got to come here.
So we were able to match her salary, what she was making at the law firm in Orlando, and moved her butt to Jacksonville. And, the Lord has his hand in everything. It's worked out great. We've had some loss in our family, and it's been good that we've been together.
Right.
She's my sibling, and
so it sounds like you're almost organically growing.
When I tell you, we reference this all the time. Organically, there are things that I am weak at that Joy is strong. There are things that Joy is weak at that I am strong, that we've never articulated. It just kind of happened. And then one day we were like, well, this is kind of a thing. Like, what you're good at, I'm not, and vice versa. But I
think I love you.
I know. If you take the garbage out, we're getting married. So that's just how it's been.
Yeah.
So we have you throw that word organically around, but really it couldn't be any truer. It just has.
Be. And we have had agents come on board. And again, not to be overly religious, but I will say that God's hand has been on us from the get-go. There have been people that have left our company that we thought at the time, oh, this is so traumatic. And then we see a year down the road, thank you, Lord, that person's no longer with us. We see people that it's just not a fit. We're more, we have a coach and they say, don't run it like a family. Well, we do run it like a family. And, we've had agents come on that, for example, might say, oh, well, your daughter, you're going to give all your leads to your daughter. Well, first of all, she couldn't take all the leads if she wanted to. And she has her own life. She has 2 children. They go to Providence. Right. She's involved in her own life. By the way, her sister's married to a Navy pilot. They're going to pick Molly over me because why? I'm their mother. Molly's way cuter than me.
He came home yesterday. We have to say, welcome home, Lieutenant Commander Bachman.
McLovin, welcome home. anyway, in all seriousness, but organically, it's just happened, and we've had a lot of people like Erlene, who's been with us from the get go. And you mentioned Bobby Brennan.
too.
There are people that just are trustworthy individuals, and that is what we're looking for. We're not looking for perfection. We are all human beings. We're going to make mistakes, but I think what has kept and sustained Hover Girls is when we make a mistake, Lara and I get our checkbook out and write the check and move along.
Right.
We don't fight with people.
The fact that you brought some of these people in that had this bond with you in one way, shape, or form or other, or the lady that was in Orlando that comes, you would already been working with her.
Well, the lady was my sister, so
Well, that could be even harder.
it really can.
Yeah.
It really can.
That's not easy.
I work with my husband.
She
We work
does.
every day together.
She does.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
to surround yourself, because I think if you look around town or in probably anywhere, any real estate team or brokerage, its success is based on those core people.
Yes.
And when you have it's not just the two of you, but you now have these other agents, support staff,
Yes.
that are bought into the ideology, have the same passion.
They do.
Will show up early if you need them to, or cover you when you're not in town.
They do.
The agents that come on all of a sudden go, oh, I guess this is how business is done. And if I want to be at Hover Girl, I got to mold in.
You better.
Well,
You need to be on the team for sure.
You have to be on the team. And I say this honestly, there are some people who are better fit to be in a larger brokerage where they're getting this, what they consider official training and official this and official that and all those things. And we can provide any of that information, but our cohesiveness is really built on and not just family blood, but family environment, meaning your, I'll just tell you, I'll give you a quick story. My last 12 months, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I had a double mastectomy. Lara stepped in. She ran the show. I went to bed. And then I had to have another surgery. She stepped in. I went to bed. This year I'm going to try to stay out of bed. And then
Sorry, Glenn.
Yeah, sorry. And then in December, my mom threw a curveball and passed away very unexpectedly. So the last 12 to 14 months of my life have been a particularly challenging time. I could cry, but what I'm saying is...
Hover Girl kept trucking along.
Yes.
Like there was no tomorrow. In fact, we had the same numbers first quarter, as we have this quarter. You probably can't find another brokerage.
Only the top that you possibly
nothing
just nailed
changed.
it. Yeah.
And Lara has had moments where she's had to go to bed.
I have.
And and we have agents right now. We have one right now who's fantastic, and her mother-in-law is sick or whatever, and we step up. We've had other people have cancer. We step up. We step up. We step up. And so,
let me ask you, so how important? Because I think a lot of agents get out there, and like you said, it can be territorial.
Yes.
And I see that, and I don't want to blame it on a generation thing, but it's like, what are you going to do for me?
Yeah, good point.
You're
not realizing that what comes around goes around.
Right.
And I'm in a situation, can you take 10 minutes to go take care of that? Can you go show this house for me, or whatever it may be, type of thing. When you have that environment, which my next question is, how many of your agents are military spouses or ex-military or whatever, but because I think they kind of have that service mostly because they have that service mentality. They're going to go out and lay on the grenade for that's their mentality. They're going to go do it. Right?
Correct.
And when you get out into the more civilian world, if we can say that,
I think you can.
You don't always. There are people that have each other's back, but so many people are a little more standoffish. Like, is that person gonna cover for me?
It's a little more.
They're gonna tell me to do it, but then 5 minutes before not show up.
What are you doing for me?
I know.
Right, exactly.
What are you going to do for me?
Exactly.
And I think that's one taught. I'm a mom. My kids are 35. I have a granddaughter in labor any moment now, by the way, in New York City. So if I get my phone and I have to go, that's what's really happening. I have 6 grandchildren that are I digress. I got sidetracked with my grandkids story. But what I want to say is there is a generation who predominantly always got a trophy, always won the beauty patch, never got told no in their life, and so they're in it for themselves, and that's just, that's unfortunately we as a society, because I have a 35, 33, and 30-year-old, so I am talking about a generation I raised. Unfortunately, the consequence of that is we have a lot of narcissistic personality, which is, what are you going to do for me? And unfortunately, that for us, that's just not really a good fit. And I'm not saying don't go knock your socks off, go to another brokerage, you do you, whatever that is, boo. But that's not how we roll, or are we going to apologize for rolling in a way that if you call me and you say you need help, I'm going to pull over and both of us are going to help you no matter what. And you can't, and by the way, you can't teach it.
No.
At that point, now it's too late.
It's ingrained in them.
To your point, Tracy, sometimes it's not relevant until it's relevant. When you try to explain what you're alluding to someone who's never lived it, they don't even know what you're talking about. So when you talk about training, yes, we provide training, but we are more hands-on. Yes, we have training with things that are going on in the market, but it's just not relevant to talk about someone that just got their license about a contract that they're not going to... You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or, for example, again, what are you going to do for me? I remember it vividly. We had a scenario where COVID's broken out, and Hover Girls has realized, because the commanding officer of the squadron has contacted us personally and said, hey, I've got a squadron on an aircraft carrier, and when we left, there was no COVID. So we're not sure on mask rules, hand sanitizers. What was the other?
Oh yeah, COVID happened while they're on deployment, right? So they come home and So we ordered all that kind of swag, if you will, and packaged it up. I think there were 200 of them, and we took them over to the commanding officer's wife and to the master chief and delivered it. So when they got off, when their ship or helicopter pulled in, they were able to get off the...
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. There were people that said, well, that doesn't affect me.
Yeah, or how does that help me?
How's that going to help me?
Which is just a...
I want to say you need
an
to
ick.
lose your
It's
you need
an
to
ick.
lose your citizenship. Is what you need to do. Sounds like you need to spend some time somewhere else.
Well, I mean, any capitalist entrepreneur is going to say, well, this is an opportunity for me to get my name out there again.
Right.
Right, but that's not why we did it.
No, it's
No.
not. But I mean, I think a lot of us, we do think, I mean, we don't think about it going and doing things for others as, directly going, hey, I'm doing this because I'm going to ask for them for a favor later.
Right.
But we do it because the Lord told us to give, and we will get back tenfold or whatever, whatever it is. So we just keep giving.
Just do it.
We keep buying that lottery
do it.
ticket,
Right.
and that's just the way we were brought
And
up.
let me just tell you, God just keeps providing. We started 3 years ago. I had an experience at the Navy base, and there was a squadron, and I called the commanding officer because I was crying at the Navy Exchange. Menopause sucks. And I said, do you have people whose kids don't have school supplies? And he said, I do. And I said, okay, Lara and I are going to provide whoever, and it's not going on social media. This is not an advertisement. So this year, I'm proud to say, and I'm just going to say it from the rooftops, we provided it for every squadron that needed it and multiple ships.
You've created a family beyond your family.
Yes.
You've because this is the world you live in. So you're giving into your world of our servicemen and women, and you're giving and you're finding ways to give in because they've given you so much, and the business that they've given you, and you're giving it right. You're giving some of that right back.
And really, we lived that life, Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, Joy and I joke about this. So, we didn't go to the movies with all four of our family. We really didn't entertain. And obviously, and now my oldest boy has enlisted in the Air Force, and I see what they're making, and sometimes it's disgraceful.
Yeah.
So we can't obviously fix everything, but when there is a need and something that we can fulfill, we want to be the first in line.
Yeah.
And those people are generally the most grateful for it as well.
Yeah.
There was the cutest little boy.
That's the most rewarding part.
Right.
And some of them may never ever, buy or rent a home.
Oh,
from
it's
you.
not even about that.
Even
No,
if they just
They're probably not.
knowing that even the thought, in fact, they send a thank you card would be awesome. But just knowing that you gave and put a smile on someone's face, that's really what I was getting.
Right.
That
We were sitting
somebody
on the
felt
ship.
good that day when they got the books or whatever.
Yeah, I just have to tell you. So one of the ships, we call it Molly's Backpacks because a friend whose husband's an XO, probably now CEO of a ship, has lost his daughter. Her name was Molly, and so we call it Molly's Backpacks. And there was this cutest little boy in the mess hall of the ship, and he is sitting at the very front row, and I said, "What's your name?" And he tells me his name, and I said, "What are you here for today?" And he goes, "I'm getting my backpack." And the CEO's wife had really just gone overboard with the detail and had his name on it and all that. And are they going to buy a house? Well, first of all,
No.
they all live in housing or whatever, so
Yeah.
it's really not about that. So if people think it's about that, they don't know us at all.
Right.
And that's okay. But the goal is to make the world a little bit better place.
Exactly.
And people gave us plenty.
Yes.
And we're
Right.
just going to keep giving.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're saying this, I think of that saying was the saying that money can't make you happy, but then someone said, "Well, it's because you haven't given enough away."
Amen. Absolutely. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen and amen.
All right, let's dig into some. I want to talk about Bizzle. Actually, I'm going to go actually to the end,
Okay.
and work back up on my questions because these don't necessarily go in order. Give us some over your years of experience, if and I'm sure you guys put out some sort of education or something to these families the first time they're having to relocate.
Sure.
What are some tips for a military relocating family?
Well, the first thing I say is I want you to talk to your lender, a couple of them. I want you to educate yourself on what that looks like. How long are your orders? If you're coming here because you're going to fleet replacement, affectionately called the RAG, and you don't know if you're going to stay here or go to Spain, please don't buy a house. Let's rent for a year, see where we are.
Right.
So really trying to, lay the groundwork of what their scenario is, because there are realtors who would just go and just sell them a house and not even know what that meant. So what I think our advantage is we speak their language. We try to encourage them to educate themselves. We put a beautiful first-time home buyer package together on questions to ask, things to think about, taxes, all of that. And we say, then please meet with your family. If they're somewhere else, which normally they are, I say, let's set up a Zoom for 5 days from now. That gives everybody time to hash it out, have their marital meeting. And then we talk about it. And for some, it's renting. For some, it's buying and then renting it out. And for some, it's buying and then selling when they leave. It's different for every
Really digging
scenario.
into the goals, and when I'm talking to people buying, as gentlemen, a lot of the talk is, do you want to buy down the rate or not? Well, how long do you plan to be in the loan?
Right.
Exactly.
What is your
100%.
goals? What are you foreshadowing? Obviously, you guys having that internal insight of the military and how long someone may or may not be here, obviously helps you be engaged in that conversation a little bit more and setting their goals.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you want to add anything to Joy?
No, I think that was great. Well said, Joy.
Thank you. Tip of the hat.
What are some of the challenges though that these families face? Relocation after relocation, that you're able to reach out and guide them through. There's some challenge, but obviously someone's helping you, and it's a little
There's
easier. to
financial challenges and there's emotional challenges. Financially, it's been really rough when the market was nuts that people couldn't hardly get a VA loan offer even looked at. And that was a crunch. We had heard people were living in campers at the base at Mayport because really they couldn't find
were.
housing. They can't compete with a cash buyer or someone that can waive an appraisal or all these crazy things. So there's that. And then also emotionally with your kids, like people trying to get their kids in school on time or be in a certain school district.
And daddy's or
And-
mommy
yeah.
is deploying, and the last 3 years have been, some of those deployments during COVID were 10, 11, 12,
Terrible.
I mean, they were crazy. So what we know is there's an advocate for school. They call it the school advocate.
Yeah, the liaison. Yeah.
Liaison, sorry, at Mayport. And so we say, call if you've got a school. You know, I can't help you with your school, but this is a person that's very educated. They study it. They know
They know who's who at school.
Well, and they know what magnet means. They know private. They know public. And so start there. If you're looking, I always say, are you looking for a job? Not that I'm going to hire you, but I all the time say, send me your resume and let me circulate it around to people.
So many people we've helped get jobs.
All the time, and it may not be with us.
Well, a lot of times, too, a family moves here and the spouse needs a job, right? And so we try to connect them with whoever, might be in their lane for employment. And honestly, it's worked out a lot. As I sit here and think about it, there's a lot of people we've helped. Jobs, hairdressers, doctors, babysitters, everything that you do when you pick up your life when your spouse gets orders.
I'm going to see
pick
a
up and start over
stenographer tomorrow at Mayport, and her husband, I'll tell you who it is later, I'm going to see her because she's going to do a sonogram for me, which is funny.
Hilarious.
And you know what we're going to talk about while I'm sitting there naked on the table and she's
real estate.
Real estate.
I know.
Can we get a break?
I imagine this has developed over time, so I want you guys to dig back because in obviously now they're calling you in, giving you basically marketing opportunities at the base because they need this, they need that. It's another opportunity for you to be in front of the peeps. At the beginning, was it that as easy, or did you have to not necessarily convince, but go and have conversations with the key people to slowly work your way?
I got to tell you,
as you build street credibility and
Street cred.
Yeah, from the beginning, Chuck Litchfield, he's now retired, but he was the CO of a squadron at Mayport, and he was one of the first people that really was a cheerleader for us. And just by him endorsing us with his own personal property, I know that a lot of other people came our way. So from the beginning, Joy and I had some real key people endorse us, not just with their words, with their actions.
Yes.
And it really was a lot, and gave us credibility, I think, in that military community, specifically at Mayport, and then now it's really reached global.
And I think your question is really about how did we kind of get into the niche of the people on the base to convince them to let us be a part.
right, because they're calling you a lot of times now versus you having to sit there and call, trying to get in to do something.
So here's the crazy: we never called.
No.
Most of those people knew us. My husband was the helicopter community for Air Lance, or Commander Helicopter Strike Wing, U.S. Atlantic Fleet. I'm like, what was his name? Yeah, a lot of things. So East Coast guy, and then we had a base CO who was, he's in politics now, but also a good friend. And so what we said to his Master Chief is, if there's a need, we'd love to give back. We're not looking for anything. Because, again, if I go to Sailor of the Quarter and I'm sitting at a table, which we're going to do at NAS this week and Mayport next week, are those people going to buy a house from me? Probably not. But I want them, one, to know thank you, first of all. Nobody knows how to say thank you anymore. And two, they may remember our name. We got a kitschy name, and they may, when they're out in San Diego, say, hey, I don't know anything about these people, but Google them because I saw them at Sailor of the Quarter. So if that comes back to us, great.
Well, I mean, that's just a building relationship. I think it's actually increased now, but the number of touches.
Right.
You're there.
Right.
They see you at another event, they book the backpacks, whatever. They're seeing you a couple of times. It starts to go, like, oh, I mean, these must be the ladies I need to work with, if I'm in Jacksonville.
And inevitably, they always say, why is it Hover Girl Properties? And that lends itself to a conversation. And it is a catchy name.
Well, that is,
yeah.
since you brought it up.
Yes.
Because there are some guys on the team. So
there are.
We call them Hover Boys.
Yeah, they're Hover Boys.
Hover Boys.
Tracy, innocently from the beginning, we kind of thought our only customers would be other people in the helicopter community. That's why we called it Hover Girl Properties, because again, Joy's husband, that's how Joy and I met, we were Navy wives. I, at the time, was married to a naval aviator. Joy still is, and that's just what we thought was going to happen. But again, they start telling their friends, and now we have people that are at NCIS, medical, NAS Jacks, and it just really started reaching. And then, like I said, now it is globally. We do get phone calls from around the world, and obviously Zoom with people from everywhere that are either coming or going, leaving here or coming here, and that's just how it's happened.
I do get a little tickled though when people in the military call us Hoover girls. I'm like,
yeah, they'll say Hoover, or sometimes they say cover girls, and I'm like, no, it's hover like the helicopter. But that's just a non-helicopter community person.
Yeah.
That's all.
I'm like, Hoover?
Yeah, they do. They say Hoover.
Vacuuming.
I know.
Haven't vacuumed.
And with a little helicopter logo next to it. Yeah, okay.
It's cute. But there's not a lot of great spellers out there, and they get it confused.
Spell check.
Yes.
Let's talk about a lot. Obviously, a lot of people, a lot of real estate brokers. Obviously, we have a lot of former military great agents around town.
Sure.
So everyone's always doing some different marketing. I'm sure you've done some different marketing, you know, on the base or however. What is one of the craziest stunts you've done marketing wise to get attention?
Oh gosh, that's a good question, Tracy. I can't think of anything really out there
Have
that
you guys
we've done.
anything crazy? Dressed up like that was you were still active.
Yeah, that was before the flight suit form was before Hover Girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got my pixie wings still on it.
That was a fun night. I can't think of anything like that, Tracy.
We've not done anything.
Are we boring,
Nothing
Joy?
crazy.
Are we boring?
Yeah, I think you guys need to skydive into the base. I think that's what you guys need to do. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Well, I do know the CEO of the base. Met with him this week.
I'm not doing
I
that.
can ask permission, but I think he'd say a hard no.
We're not jumping out of planes, Doyle.
Flying Elvis couldn't. You could pull
No, it didn't. No,
No.
it wasn't like that.
marketing, though, in general, we talk about social media. You mentioned that earlier. How is that over 15 years? 15 years ago, you weren't really thinking about, too much about, Facebook or some of these things that have come about. But what are you guys now doing to stay top of mind? What are you coaching your agents on or getting them education on from a marketing standpoint? Whether it's to stay top of mind, but also obviously you're always trying to gain that new client, right?
Right. I love the giveaways we do. Molly, who's again our baby, she's our director of marketing, and she puts together these amazing giveaways that go out through the community, and you like and share it, and that really gets a groundswell of conversation going as well. So I love that we do that, and I think that's been a great.
It's been fun.
It's
to
fun.
do.
You stir it up with your past clients
Correct.
and so forth to get them.
Correct.
Oh, yeah,
we've done
so-
some photo giveaways, or Joy and I have hosted like a Christmas not photo pageant. What's the right word?
We've done many packages, and really,
Yeah.
you know why? Because when our husbands were active duty, we couldn't afford to have a professional photographer.
That's what we thought.
Yes.
It's not something we would have ever been able to spend money on.
So we do
Right.
that. So we try to give things that we know back in the day would have been just a treat upon
A
treat.
blessing.
We just did 2 family zoo annual passes. Again, it would be something that I would have loved to have done with my kids, but I couldn't afford it.
Right.
And so we do those types of things. And I think that the biggest thing is in the advertising world is we try to be above what I call the fray. There's just a lot of tomfoolery in this business. And so we try to tell the truth, keep a smile on our face, help people, and I think, put positive things out there. One thing I cannot stand, it makes me crazy, is when I see another realtor get on social media and start bad-mouthing another agent, not necessarily by name, but their industry. Oh, don't you wish everybody in our business would do their job? No, absolutely not. Yes, I do wish they would, but the fact is that's not my problem. But if you work for us, it's more, we expect positivity and not negativity. And
All right, that kind of leads me actually to my next question. As leaders, co-owners, the face of Hover Girl. Well, I'm gonna start it off with a lead question: recruiting. As really most of these agents kind of come to you, or have you actually gone out and sought after agents? What's your vision of Hover Girl? Are you trying to really, grow exponentially like some people are with disregard of quality?
Correct.
I would tell you we are not doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
And we are not recruiting.
No.
if someone comes to us, we'll have a lunch with you and we'll see what your vibe is and experience and see if you fit into what we see as who we are as a company. We do not recruit, and really because I don't want just anybody representing. Lara and I can't be everywhere. I can't be on every phone conversation. So whoever's on our team, and we have come to the mindset of we would rather honestly have less people and more quality.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, because the drag of
it's painful
of taking down.
It's a
It's
you're right,
painful.
it's a drag.
All right, so you're having that coffee.
the drag is a drag.
So that agent contacts you, said, I really like what you guys are doing. I want to talk to you. So you're sitting down there talking to them, but there's an exchange.
Yeah.
The agents need to get value out of being as part of Hover Girl.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, your reputation, 15 years of in business in the area that you're in, you are getting a lot of organic leads, natural referrals. Above and beyond that, what value prospect are you giving the agents? Because if they're not getting value from you,
Right.
they're going to roll to somewhere else.
I think the value for them is that they have access to Joy and I all the time. Sit down with them in person. There's so many agents. I just sit with them with their laptops and Zoom and screen share and show them how to get organized and kind of how to run. They're all independent contractors, obviously. So show them how to kind of run their life to get organized on the front end, so you can feel good about what you're doing out on the streets, as we say. And so I think that the training that we provide, the access to Joy and myself that they have, the support of we referenced earlier, we have a service manager. So when you do have a rental, you are placing the renter, and then we manage it, so to speak, where the agent can go on and do the next thing and not be bogged down by the pool filter.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, I think that is really a great setup, right? So you can continue to go out there and earn more business, and you're not bogged down by trying to.
I also think.
Well, how's that? Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, I also think, in other setups, a lot of people with their agents will what I call feed them to death. You got an office fee, you got this fee, you got a copy fee, you got to do this, you got to do that. We don't do any of that. If you don't make a dime next month, neither do we. We're not charging you. What I think is important is we do give people leads, but we do have also the expectation that they are out and actively
Getting their own.
well,
Right,
and
Tracy,
not-
do
right,
something,
I
do
mean,
something, bro.
Do something. If I've not seen you do anything socially on social media, call. If someone says, I called your office, they never called me back, because like yesterday, I gave 4 people 25 leads each.
From calls that have just happened over the last.
Organically in the last 24 hours.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
Yeah.
So if one of those call me back, now that doesn't happen all the time, so I'm not trying to say that it does, but yesterday was like,
Something happened.
something happened.
Yeah.
Well, I have noticed in the last week the apps just all of a sudden I know it's this time of the year or whatever, April 1st coming around. Oh,
I don't
start
know.
looking at
Yeah, so it was crazy. But if someone says that person hasn't called me back or texted me and set up an appointment, then when they come and say, well, you're not giving me enough leads, well, no, you're not going to get a lead. If I've got to do the lead, then I'm going to give the lead to someone else, because there's only so much bandwidth in the day.
Right.
And one thing cancer has taught me, I say it from the rooftop, I'll work hard all day long, but I'm not going to kill myself to work. I'm going to do a good job, and we're going to also have a life of balance and faith and family and all the things.
And tennis.
And now my partner is Billie Jean King.
I know. Do you play tennis? I started playing tennis in August, and
Oh, is
Tracy.
that right?
Oh my gosh!
I haven't played in a little while. When I was younger, my dad had me take lessons, and I wish I could play more. Brian Diekman, who was the Master Chief that I was talking about, him and I started, but then he had knee surgery and with. So I haven't really played since I think I've played him. That's been a little bit. So,
It's so good, but to
yeah,
Joy's
I love-
point,
yeah.
just a work-life balance. People use that phrase obviously a lot, but we encourage that for ourselves, Joy and I for each other, and obviously our agents. I want them to have a life too. We can't all be working all the time.
Yeah.
No,
You gotta-
and I do love calling her Billie Jean King or BJK at home.
She does call me Billie Jean.
But the other thing that I think is important is that breeds a sense of health. Like, I do not expect you to, now I might have to text you at 9 o'clock on Sunday night. I always preface it, this does not need a response. I just know I'm out the door at 7 a.m. tomorrow and
right.
I will forget. So we try to give that limitation. That's why we hired a nights and weekends emergency line for service.
I imagine for property management,
You
need
have
that.
to have that, yeah.
But you know, anytime anybody in real estate thinks they need to talk to somebody, they need to talk to them right now.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. So we have tried to put some things in place because we were killing ourselves that we just don't really care to do. And then I'm active, and she is active very much in our own faith families, and so you know we have a life there too. I was talking about you this weekend, by the way, with Shara Kavanaugh.
Oh, were you? Yes.
Hello,
She was a-
Shara.
Hi,
Shara
Shara.
was a great interview. Yeah,
She's lovely.
Yeah, that was a great.
She's awesome. We were in
I'll
North
be-
Carolina together.
Oh, is that right? I'll be cutting some more reels from her show. Initial ones went out, but then I'll go back in and cut another
Okay.
bunch.
She's
Yeah.
great.
All I'm going to tell you is we were in North Carolina, and that's all I have to say.
In North
about
Carolina. Okay. All right. I imagine, well, actually, I want to talk about education first. So, it's just the two of you early. And that period of time was traumatic from the standpoint. There's a lot of short sales going on.
Oh, yeah.
Learning how to deal with foreclosure.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody had that knowledge, and that you had to dive into it.
Do you remember HAP, the Homeowner Assistance Program, sponsored by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers? HAP.
No, I probably don't.
Okay.
I was at that time. I was at Quicken.
Okay.
So Quicken didn't even do VA and FHA until that
So
time.
you would know
Okay.
that is.
So yeah, they
Okay.
were just like they wanted to fast speed. Of course, they had some of the alternative lending that was going on
Yes.
that got us in trouble.
Right.
And it wasn't until the class where we had to then FHA and VA
Okay.
became a more higher percentage.
So
of
we did
loans.
short sales, but HAP was what she just referred to, and that was the government. The Army Corps of Engineers came in. The president of the United States figured out the short sale problem of security clearances, and so they would pay the difference in what the property value was and
Versus what they owed.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we would sit at tables, no joke, and I would see a U.S. government check for $110,000, $120,000, $130,000. But we did surround ourselves with people who knew the program, understood the program, all those things, and it was super important. And that's really kind of what launched us into sales.
Well, I mean, but at the time, there wasn't like this, we'll go to this formal training and this is how it's done.
No.
You had to go into the dark room.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But here's what I want to say. There were a couple of realtors who are now about the age we are now who said,
Were they the same age then as you?
Right. Like, remember when you thought 50 was old?
exactly. Exactly. But these two ladies, Denise D'Amico and Jeanette Catter,
Cheryl DeGrove is who you're
and
thinking
Cheryl
of.
DeGrove,
Cheryl
sorry.
DeGrove.
And Jeanette Catter, shout out to both of them, really took us under their wing and said, let me help you. Even though you don't work for me.
Had
there's
nothing to do with
nothing
them.
to you. I want to help you girls because I see what your heart is and what your goal is. And so we try to pay that forward too. We have people from other agencies all the time. Now, if somebody calls and says they're hanging their license for the, I only want to pay $250 in real estate, transaction, whatever, I say you need to go get a broker that's going to help you. But if you're with another broker and you're like, I need an answer right now, we help people all the time.
Yeah.
Happily.
So I was looking, just browse your website and browse your staff. I mean, it looks like you have a lot of younger people, a lot of like about your kids' age, around the 30-ish time frame. So, and some of them may not even own their own home yet. I don't know how long they've been with you or whatever, but from a standard education, how important is it for them to be constantly grabbing, whether it's something you providing, a lender's providing, NEFAR's providing, for them to consistently be educating and grabbing something every day?
Yeah, I say, obviously that is important. And as you're mentioning that, I'm trying to think, do we have anybody that rents? I think, honestly, everybody has at least gone through the home buying experience.
Okay.
And like you mentioned earlier, most of our agents are military. We do have an agent that actually, she was a customer of mine, Yehl Carapepe. She bought a house with us, and going through the transaction, she was like, I want to do what you're doing. I want to work for you. And I'm like, okay, so get your house first and then go to real estate school and then we'll figure it out. But she's the one that she does the Canine for Warriors. And I love that. She has a heart. That's how she serves. And really, it's,
I think she has 50 dogs living in her house.
No,
kidding,
but 3, I
gosh,
think.
She loves it.
She
She
loves
raises
it.
the puppies like Aaron?
Yeah, she
Yeah,
does.
it's
Yeah,
an
and she works for
amazing
Canine for Warriors. It's amazing. What
But
they
we do have multiple meetings a month. We really found that we meet with agents one-on-one. We try to do that.
Regularly scheduled, or just when they kind of need it?
No, we're trying to do that a few times a year.
Right.
And get feedback. And then we have retreats where we get more feedback. And so from that, one of the things is we want to get together and do training. So yesterday we talked a lot about just, fair housing and what that looks like and how to make sure that you're handling yourself in a way that's correct and legal and that kind of thing. And so those are things we try to provide.
How often are you, like you said, your past class client asked you about real estate? I imagine you get that
a lot.
Every day
It is.
of my life.
What? No. So this is the real.
How's the market?
I want to put this on you. This part's going to be on. Well, it's all on YouTube, but I want to clip this out. You're having that conversation to a lot, but not everybody. What are you saying to them? What are you telling these pre-real estate agents what real estate life is all about, so that they can make a proper decision if it's something they want to do?
That's really hard. That's a hard.
I don't think it's hard at all. That's so funny.
Well, we are overly clear about, you better have, I say, a plan B because it can get a little.
It takes a minute to get
Yep,
started.
it does.
Number one. Number two, if you and your spouse are not in agreement for you to work nights and weekends, it's a straight up no. I wouldn't do that to yourself, to your marriage or partner or whatever you want to call it. 3, expect to not make any money the first year as you're building yourself, and surround yourself with people who are like-minded. And sometimes teaming up is better. It just depends on the personality. For some people, just going straight line rentals. We're not like some brokerages where you're either a rental agent or a sales agent, and the question is always why, and here's the answer. In military world, we can be going all the way down the sales line, and all of a sudden I want to rent. And we don't want the continuity of care to switch up and go, oh, well, she can't do that, so now I'm going to give you with this one, and we're going to start over.
A whole new relationship.
So
No.
once you have been given the lead and procured the lead, that lead is yours to the finish line, no
Right.
matter what they decide to do.
Right. Retention. I think it's one of the biggest, any of the successful teams in the area, brokerages, obviously, we talked about adding value and so forth. Between the two of you, when you talk about the brokerage as a whole,
Yeah.
what are a couple key things? If someone is like, hey, I want to start a real estate team, they might not think about it. I know because I've interviewed 130 agents, and I know if they're a team leader, retention is big in their success. And having that core group of people is part of your retention. The longer they're on, the longer they're likely to stay, right? So when you guys talking about retention and so forth, what are some of the things that you guys have developed over time? You probably were doing something back in 2015 that you don't do today because you don't need it or didn't see it as adding value, or your team gave you feedback. But in the terms of retention, what's your mindset, your ideology that you guys are, as owners, are consistently thinking about?
I think we're freaky. And I say that because, not freaky in a bad way, but I think we're unique in that my motto is, if you think the grass is greener somewhere else, I encourage you to go right on over there, water it, and good luck to you. Because I know that if you will just water your own grass, you will be fine. Number two, there are just certain people that are of the mindset they need to be in charge, or they need it to be about them. And if it needs to be about them, Hover Girls isn't going to work, because we really, for 16 years, have been the Hover Girls.
All right, well, dig deep on those two things, and they're probably somewhat similar.
Yeah.
Being in charge or about them. Give me an example of that as a real estate agent. That someone, I mean, they're a real estate agent. They're sort of in charge of their transaction that they're working, right? They're leading the buyer or seller.
They'll tell you they don't work for you, but they do.
Okay, they start copying that attitude when it's because they're still wearing the Hover Girl badge, right? I mean, that's still the
And you do work for us.
Yeah.
That's what the DBPR says anyway. That's not me.
Well, you start seeing that like you're going to have a meeting and they're not showing up, or they're not participating, or it's just
you can start seeing
not really taking your guidance.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can start seeing you're giving a preferential treatment or leads to this person. I mean, it's all the same. Yeah. The writing can become on the wall. Here's the thing that I say. I want people to have the freedom to go and do what God's calling them to do. It's not that you leave, it is how you leave. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Somewhat, but I'm trying to place it.
So we had someone leave about 2 years ago now, and that person, he came and he said, "Hey, listen, I really want to have my own brokerage." And we said, "Great." And hey, I'm going to go get my brokerage license. He kept us abreast of his plan the whole time. He gave us gifts when he left. Not that we need gifts. I'm not a gift person. But I'm just saying.
But he thanked you for what you taught him.
He did. He did.
He wrote a note. He still to this day calls us boss ladies. I see him at church. I was just in Israel with him for 10 days, had a ball. Great way to leave. We've had other people leave, literally, who never mentioned that they work for our company, who blocked us on social media as if we're now in, 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
And so, it depends on the person. I mean, and their maturity level
Right.
is what I would say.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's not if you leave, it's how you leave. And that's the truth in anything. I mean, my husband being in the military, people, I don't want to be a pilot anymore. If you sit down and say, "Hey, Skipper, I don't really like this job. I want to turn my wings in." There's a way to do that rather than, "You have ruined my life. I can't believe you're making me be a pilot." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah. So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, somewhat. I don't know if it's answering the question that I had though. Because I think as business leaders and the owners, is the ultimate spot, right? Your livelihood is attached to it. That you want to improve. Now, someone wants to leave. You don't let it drag you down.
No,
you don't let it be an anchor to you. And you might be upset because you really like the person for a few minutes, but you're like, okay, if that's what you want to do, and keep going.
Correct.
But I guess it's what
I don't
keeps
like to
you up at night, so to speak, from the standpoint of how can I keep Hover Girl, because I think the retention is what we're talking about, is the success of Hover Girl is retention, as I think in any company. If you have a good employee, you want to retain them, but eventually they're going to be so good that somebody is going to offer them a benefits package that is so much better than yours that they can't refuse it. That's the real compliment, right? As leaders, you create another leader, right?
Right.
So what keeps you up at night just in keeping Hover Girl on top of things and making sure your agents are consistently given the support they're giving? How do you stay in front of them? I guess that might be a better
I mean, I think you try to do your very best to give them education. I think once someone has decided in their mind that there's something better out there, it's kind of like dating, then no matter what we offer them, Because we've seen it over the 16 years.
Yeah, they got to go test the water. They got to go see if the grass is greener.
Or
Right.
so say a year before they leave, you sit down and you hash out because what's it about? Commission always. And you hash that out and you come to agreement, you give them what they want, and then, a year later they still leave. The truth of the matter is that person was going to leave. Is because I believe that once you get in your head, that's why you never, in my mind, say, we're getting a divorce. Once you've kind of put that word out there, it gets yucky. And that's a hard topic. I mean, I never want anybody to leave because they're unhappy, but I also recognize I'm not responsible for their happiness. And we can only do so much.
Well, let me ask you, this made me think of, you have roughly, I think, like 15 agents or so, is that something like that?
Yeah.
And so in your mind, as owners, leaders, managers, whatever you want to, all the above, you're wearing all hats. Are you, is there little things that you do that, if you were talking to someone who wanted to create their own team from another brokerage and say, hey, I want to create a team, I want to dig into your mind. What are some of those things that you do kind of above and beyond, behind the scenes, no one even really knows you're doing it, type of things to keep, you said family, to keep, you got 15 kids, you can't give them all the same attention.
That's
right.
right.
Right. What do you do to kind of give them all the little attention, let you love them?
I think the same thing I was alluding to before is that they have access to us. If they want to come and sit down and kind of pick our brain, people always use that, well, can I pick your brain about this? And talk about, just have an open door, open conversation about what their needs are, what we can provide for them, and really know that we care about them, and we do.
And we do.
Yeah, we do.
But at the end of the day, if a person like the first person I was referring to, when he decided to leave, he wanted me to come see his office. I did that. He asked me how to run his business. I answered it. We talked about it in Israel. I mean, if someone says, hey, I want to go out on my own, would you help me? All day long. And so it always is a little bit jolting when you don't get the courtesy of knowing that's coming.
Right. And I think because we were talking about before, what comes around goes around. You give.
It does.
It does.
It will.
If you love something, you let it go. If it doesn't come back.
Yeah.
Right.
Flitter, flatter,
right.
flitter, yes.
All those great phrases. But because you are a giver and so forth, that's what you want to do. What I think will probably hurt you the most, which would be the same for me, because I'm exactly the same way, is the fact that person leaves, blocks you on social media, cuts the line, cuts the cord abruptly one night. It's because you were giving in so much that they didn't have the humanality, to lack of better words, maturity,
said.
yeah, to say, hey, I really appreciate you. But I want to go start my own brokerage,
100%,
or I think I'm going to go over here. I want to do, and obviously you're always going to say, well, you make sure you're going to always, I know people fear that because you're going to try to obviously, does anyone?
Well, what I said to the guy that left first, I've known him since he was 14 years old, but I said, here are some of the things that I want you to be ready for,
yes.
that you don't necessarily see financially. That run behind the scenes, and we would be willing to share that with anybody.
Show you that.
You're right.
But if you quit at 11 o'clock at night and cut me, and I can't even get a hold of you, then I can't help you with that.
It's odd.
It's odd.
I'm gonna finish up here. Is there anything else that we didn't mention that you guys want to say about Hover Girls and that maybe we can cover? I think we covered a lot.
You covered a lot,
We
Tracy.
covered a lot of
I
ground.
like your little list there. It's good.
You guys are involved, obviously, with a lot of things at the base. You said you mentioned now. Is she an agent and also works for Canines for Warriors? The lady?
She is an agent and also works for Canine Forwarders. Yeah, Danielle Carapepe.
Yep. Anyone else that we want to mention for their service and
I would say Bobby Brennan. I mean, honest to God, she has been with us forever. She is a friend of a lifetime for both of us.
Yeah. The girl is a miracle worker in real estate. I can tell you that.
And not only in real estate, if you need someone,
Yeah.
she will help you. And the list really, I hate to leave out
Yeah.
anybody because there's so many that have so many great qualities. Even our service manager, Katie Cowell, I mean, That's the worst job in the world, by the way. Property management service manager. No one calls you and says, thanks for sending me that $800
Right.
bill for that hot water.
It's rough.
So, but she is level, lovely. Excuse me. Molly and Mitchell are doing very well. Leslie, her sister, she does a lot for people who have been in doing their property management with us for a long time and then want to sell because they've been talking to her for a decade.
Right.
Excuse me.
We have a husband-wife team on the north side. I'm sure you saw their picture on our website, Kelly and Rick Whitney, who are just phenomenal. And I love that they're out together, working and doing stuff. And
He was in AW, used to jump out of the back of the helicopter with Glenn.
Yep.
He's great.
Let's.
yeah.
What do you think, if to sum up your team, what are 2 or 3 qualities that everyone seems to have?
Commitment. I would say people help each other. I just saw it myself last year when people had to rally around me. And honestly, I think that there are just certain people who aren't looking for that big brokerage feel. They're looking more for a hometown feel, boutique, whatever everybody wants to call it something different, but
They're loyalists for sure.
yeah, very, very, and that's what I think when
these-
you say what shakes you or keeps you up at night, when you realize someone
Is loyal to you.
did not treat you that way,
Oh,
you're just,
yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
where did that come from? But, at the end of the day, I think the people that we have now, I think we have the best team that we've ever had.
I do too. It's great.
And love every single solitary one of them. They're all very different, but they're all just like in it to win it.
Mm-hmm.
Tina Priest just got her license, is killing it. So, I mean, it's just good. It's good. And it's Easter week. It's Holy Week.
Yes, it is. Actually,
It is, Joy.
yes. You kind of forget that. Actually, I was just we're having people over the house, and I'm like, are you having my dad cook the leg of lamb? Because he likes doing that.
Oh, good.
And my wife is like, well, I'm going to get a ham. I said,
Oh, boy.
I said, get ham sandwiches for those who won't eat the lamb.
You gotta have a ham for Easter, Tracy.
It is
I
kind
am
of.
I'm on your wife's side.
You can have a little lamb, but I'd rather have a leg of lamb.
Yeah, you're saying you can have ham, but lamb. It's a lamb week.
Yeah. I like a good leg of lamb. Don't often have it, but those holiday things. I'm really, even Thanksgiving, I've gotten tired of the turkey
I know,
and the
me
ham
too,
and the
me
mashed
too.
potatoes.
Me
Yeah.
too, me too,
The
me
last
too.
couple of years, we've gone on cruises that week because
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with the whole family, what we're eating, how we're eating, when we're eating.
Yeah, eat what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go get entertained. We'll see you at dinner time.
That's required if I paid the bill.
Yeah. But I really feel there's so many other things out there other than ham and turkey. So
There are. Have you had the shawarma?
no, I don't believe I have.
Okay, well, if you go to Israel, get the lamb shawarma.
Lamb shawarma.
Shawarma.
Was that a certain different cut? What are we looking
It's like sliced lamb. My husband loves it, and it's SHAR. No, there's a W in there. ARMA. Shawarma.
What's that meat place at the town center? He can go there for that. Where they walk around with the meat on the thing.
Oh, the Brazilian steakhouse.
thing, yeah, that-
Oh,
that.
yeah.
It's very
that's
much like that.
It skeeves me.
Where they come over and yeah.
all the
All right,
meat.
I am going to fish up, ladies. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank
This
you,
has been a great
Tracy.
show, and there's going to be a lot of content going to come out of this. Guys,
There's no
if
telling.
anyone wants to, there's some good laughs in here, and there's some good knowledge to be shared. So this is going to be a great episode.
Thank you for your time.